I think actually like one of the skills, and this is alongside production, that I've been kind of the most kind of thankful to have and have developed, and this kind of goes along with being a teacher as well, um, is kind of getting a sense of how to get the best out of someone, how to get someone to uh, perform at their best, or I think knowing when to stop as well, and like sort of help people uh, through an artistic process. And I think part of that is also me learning a bit about the artistic process a bit more, and having access to create in a different space and in a different way. And I think part of that too has to go with um, by circumstance of my privilege and having a very supportive family, uh, is being able to like also fail, right? Like able to leave scenarios that weren't working for me or weren't furthering my career, and take risks on new windows and stuff, or new windows of opportunity. Uh, and through that kind of like, yeah, having the room and the space to develop uh, those sorts of interpersonal skills and sort of creative skills that come into handy, or come in handy when I'm working with other artists in here, or even if I'm like talking with other people about music, or like having conversations about some of these subjects even. Yeah, and it's really in the classroom, I think, in the teaching setting. I think as a consequence of wanting to learn how to record, it also kind of made sense that I, you know, uh, maybe learn a bit more about like actually making music in a way that's accessible to me. Like as someone who's been playing drums for like most of my life, and not necessarily being like the most at home on a piano, or uh, in a fourth tuned instrument, right? At least in a sort of like writing or performance aspect, it can be kind of hard to access all the sounds in your head. And so I think production has kind of allowed, or what it hooked me, what production hooked me with is kind of like the idea that I could get some of those ideas into actual space without like through some alternative routes, like actually getting into programming, or like learning how to use like rely on different aspects of a sound to create tension, like for instance, as a drummer, not really being super well versed in theory, or maybe it takes me a little bit longer to put together a set of changes to start writing through. It might be a little bit easier or a little bit more accessible to, for instance, just like stick to simpler harmony but use texture, or different sort of ways of routing signals or sequencing sounds to create something a little bit more interesting. I think most of what I'm doing is more on the sound design front, or I think more recently, like sort of trying to write songs with other like collaborators and such. So I did it all online. I took a 6 month course, uh, sort of specifically tailored to Ableton, uh, from this school, Point Blank Music. It's like this academy in London, and so they had like a kind of a roster of online teachers, and through their website and through their like own kind of portal, you could access the content, the course content, various like sound packs. You could book slots with people that had experienced various different aspects of music production, different DAWs, different subjects like mastering, mixing, even social media. And so that was very much kind of the way that I really got my hands on the fundamentals of the program, and like the sort of basics of music production. Uh, and I found that to be, you know, pretty intensive and also very helpful. I think I was, because it's an online course, I kind of felt like it might not be a bad idea to try and go a bit further outside of, the local purview, and also just to kind of like get a sense of what's going on, connect with some other musicians. I think their online program was pretty new. I think it was pretty recent, but it was like kind of like an ongoing larger school, like a physical location. I heard about it just through like my own research, like Googling. I know that some people had done like the Berkeley course and stuff, but I kind of, wanted to do something a little bit less academic, or not, something that's kind of like not necessarily based out of like a larger school like Berkeley. I think musically in the past, especially when I was like, coming up in Ottawa, there was a lot of musicians that kind of fulfilled that role. I found that more recently, I should say, like kind of looking more to my own peerage for inspiration and knowledge these days, and also to younger musicians as well. Like a lot of the sort of knowledge that was being passed down to me was not really reflective, I think, of the reality of the industry and the sort of evolving nature of that, right? Especially the last like 10 years or so, things really changed quickly. I know a lot of people started getting off Facebook in the last since 2019-ish. I always felt very tied to it because I have I use Instagram, which I know is also owned by Facebook, but it's more content oriented. So it's not about, I don't feel like it's necessarily about the social interactions. It's more like, at least in my experience with it has been, it's not as intimate in that way, or it kind of feels, I think, a little bit less. I found that the platform of Facebook personally kind of problematic and also very harmful for my mental health. I know a lot of people in my generation of musicians and artists still are on Facebook, and I think that a lot of people feel very tied to the platform because a lot of people have formed their entire social networks around Facebook, right? You literally, it's people's phone book now, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Their contacts list.
Yeah.
So, but when I started talking to some younger students and stuff, because I was doing a bunch of teaching, they were like, "Why are you're still on Facebook? No one's on Facebook anymore. I don't have to be on Facebook." And so I deleted a lot of my social media during the pandemic, but I think that Facebook is the one I just haven't started up again at all. The more chances, well, I think I have a friend who's in marketing, and he talks a lot about the funnel, right? And that you have a lot of stuff at the top of the funnel, and then you filter out people towards your product and stuff. And I think that's kind of what artists and people running independent businesses and stuff kind of have to do these days, is they have to cast a very wide net. And that means just having yourself everywhere, right? That can be, I don't know, I don't think it's necessarily a good or bad thing. I do find that it's a little bit difficult to be so reliant on some of these platforms and the sort of way we conduct our networks. One of the things that I did notice, when I got off Facebook, there's a lot of people that very much just kind of stopped communicating with me altogether, because the only place that we were communicating was through Facebook group chats and stuff. I know that's also a reason a lot of people stay, is for the group chats and whatnot. And so, that is kind of in my view, that is a reality, but it's also kind of somewhat of a collective social decision that everyone is making. In that kind of mental prison a little bit, I think, as a community, about our relationship with and being so beholden to some of these platforms. Some programs have shifted a bit more, I think, to I know Humber had a more robust sort of music business program. We had some, like, I think, intellectual property discussions about how that kind of works generally, but and like there was individual teachers that knew how to deal with it, like Ernesto Cervini is like my fourth year drum teacher. He runs like a publishing company here for like jazz musicians and stuff, and so he knew a lot about it. He like sells do-it-yourself kits and stuff that deal with like publishing and advertising and stuff like that. But in terms of from like an academic standpoint, like I had to ask several different peers and mentors over like at several different points, even as recent as like last year, you know, when I was doing production lessons with this guy T in Toronto, who works with, you know, he does production for pop and stuff, like pop pioneers, songwriters. So he deals with that a lot. And even then, like I'm still kind of fuzzy on it. You know? So I mean, I guess there's a couple different ways that that's handled from this particular angle. It's just like contract work, I think. So a lot of people will come up with like sort of royalty schemes or like agreements off the top. So, you know, for how I do it with in a sort of collaboration scheme would be, you know, maybe I don't get paid for it, or I'm not, you know, paying for it necessarily. But then we'll just say like, all right, so split all the rights down the middle, like 50-50, and whatever happens, happens. Or if someone wants to like buy a tune, like I had a friend who works in film and video editing who was doing a commercial and needed some like music. And so they paid me to just like basically write them a quick like backing track, and they paid me $700 flat. Like I'm not going to get royalties on it, but it's just like getting a commission to do something. For that stuff, no, because I would consider that like sort of I mean, yeah, like a commission piece or like, you know, almost like fair use, public use sort of stuff. A lot of the stuff that I put out is, or like that I would put out in terms of like sound packs or drum packs is free for like sort of the smaller ones, and then like maybe on a pay what you can basis. And then, you know, if you want to use them, that's you can. There's no copyright involved in it. You paid me up front to be able to use it. Right. And then if you want to copyright it and stuff, if it becomes a hit and you start making royalties off it, well, like, yeah, it's out of my hands. Legally, it's just theirs. So I think that's usually like the basis that I work on in this capacity. But then, yeah, like if I'm releasing a record or if it's like my own artistic thing and someone plays my music, that would be like a royalties based thing. SOCAN would be a situation where it's kind of like a, you know, like something personal, like a my own record, or, you know, if I'm collaborating with an artist and we would both have SOCAN and sort of negotiate royalties and rights through that. Because at least to my knowledge, like if you're having your music played in Canada, I'm pretty sure you have to have SOCAN. Or I guess with the American counterpart, I know some people are registered with both, but I don't think you have to be. Yeah. I haven't really made a website, at least kept like an up-to-date one for quite a while. I think that there's some value in it. I mean, like I keep I have like a Gumroad store that I sell sound packs on, or you know, I intend on moving all of like my sort of for sale beats and library music too. So that kind of acts as like sort of an online storefront. I think when I'm like directing people to my online stuff, it's usually to like Instagram or or TikTok or wherever that may be. Um, instead of having a website, I kind of have more of like a collection of separate locations online, and then kind of tie those together with like a link tree or something, so people can find like all my various places. I'm very lucky in that regard. Like, not a lot of people in where I'm living have access to a space and equipment, like a 2-bedroom top floor of a bungalow. And we have a downstairs neighbor who lives in the basement. And basically, we've been lucky in that, she works during the day out of the house, so we're kind of able to make some noise in like this detached house. And also we live in sort of more of a family slash like working class neighborhood, so there's like already lots of hustle and bustle. It's not a huge issue. And so that's kind of nice, right? To be able to have that space at home and not have to pay money to rent out a studio, rehearsal space, or jam space. I think especially as a drummer, like it's really hard to have a space where you can actually fully perform in an acoustic sense. I think it's a hard lifestyle, right? I think that it takes a certain kind of person who is, like you have to have like a lot of, I think, tolerance for various kinds of stimuli. I have to be able to have some like feel comfortable in kind of like adverse scenarios, or kind of be able to exist in those kind of high stress situations. Not everyone's built for that. Certainly not me. Although I do think like there are certain things that I do want to do. Like, I have a couple bands or projects that I'm working with that are sort of like 3 pieces that we might do like a Euro tour or something. Something that I think like I would be kind of down to do that sporadically, but I don't think the like touring as a job, full on like every summer doing a huge like 2-month thing is in the cards for me personally. I think I'm like mostly comfortable in, I mean, obviously like I think performance wise it's a lot of jazz adjacent stuff. Production wise, kind of more in the hip hop or like sort of funk, new funk sort of area. I'm trying to get into some like city pop and like honestly like 80s Japanese funk, like those kind of styles. But then also like in as a drummer, and I think bringing some of this knowledge into my more, I think, like acoustic centric performance, where I've got some projects that are like diving into some very sort of jazz fusion, or like almost jazz electronic fusion stuff, more almost kind of like Euro music. Yeah, lots of like drum and bass beats, or like dance beats, trying to incorporate some more electronics into our performance practice live, which is super fun. I have had to like pack my brain with how to route wires basically for the last like, I think I said to my friend last night, like I signed up to be a drummer, not an electrician. Yeah. For like sort of smaller settings, you might have like a lead sheet or something that's just like a melody with chords. But yeah, no, we like a lot of the music that I do is like bringing in a score, or maybe a drum part, or like written music to play along to. I think a lot of the times when I am drumming, though, it does break down to like sort of more improvisation in that regard. But it's always good to be able to read something at the drop of the hat, which is kind of one of the things that I've been very proud of being able to do. Robust big band background of, I think that's one of the good things about growing up in Ottawa is that there was lots of high school big bands and stuff. We got lots of opportunities to read charts and, get that stuff done.